Right, it's 5 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and we'll get started in just a moment to let people trickle in. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started in just a moment. We're just waiting for more people to arrive. I can see there are more people trickling into the session. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started here in just a moment. I can see that people are still coming into the webinar, so we're just going to wait a moment here so that more people can access. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. So good evening. My name is Lisa Overstreet, and I am an assistant director for the Transfer Opportunity Program. So welcome. This is our Next Steps webinar for transfer applicants. We have the Q&A feature available for you to ask general questions, but please don't put personal information into the Q&A. If you have really specific questions regarding your grades or GPA or eligibility, et cetera, then I advise all of you to reach out directly to your UC Davis advisor. And this can be found using the Find My Advisor tool on the UC Davis undergraduate admissions website. This session is being recorded, and it will be posted to our UC Davis Top YouTube channel after this, so you can go back and reference it. Let's go ahead and get started. So you've selected your campuses, submitted your application, paid your application fees. So now what? You still have a few more items to cross off your list. In this session, we're going to go over the Transfer Academic Update, setting up your My Admissions portal, financial aid and scholarships next steps, and we will review some important dates and deadlines. So you will be notified via email to submit your TAU, that's the Transfer Academic Update. It is scheduled to open tomorrow, December 15th, and the priority deadline to submit it is January 31st. So the time when you really should be submitting this is once your fall grades are finalized and you've set up your spring schedule, but definitely no later than January 31st. And you'll do this by logging back into your UC application. And this is where you'll be able to see when your application was forwarded to the campuses, as well as access the Transfer Academic Update once it's available. The TAU is required for both TAG and non-TAG applicants. And failure to submit the TAU will result in a voided TAG, and the UC application will be subject to cancellation. So it's really important that you take this step to fill this out. Aside from the TAU, you can make only a few changes to your application once it's submitted. You can update your contact information and your exam scores. And you can also apply to any additional campuses if they're still open. And to make any of these changes, go to application status. So even if an applicant is not currently enrolled and all information was submitted on the original application, all transfer applicants are required to submit the TAU. So even if you finished last spring and you're not taking any more classes, you still need to submit this TAU. It is required. And so the next couple of slides are screenshots of what the TAU notification will look like and also what you're going to need to fill out. So if you are not enrolled for fall 23 or spring 24, you must provide an explanation in the comment box of the TAU regarding this. And this is something that you need to do even if you fully explained this in your UC application already. You need to reiterate this again in your TAU. If you're currently enrolled, then you submit your grades from fall 23 and you confirm or update what your winter and or spring courses are. The deadline to submit the initial TAU is January 31st, but as long as it continues to remain open, you can make additional updates if needed. So if beyond that January 31st deadline, let's say you drop a course, then if it's still open, you can go back in and submit another TAU to let us know. So you will need to update this section of the TAU regarding minimum requirements, for example, your English and your math. IGETC is not a requirement for transfer to the UC system, but it is something that is highly recommended. So if you're unsure if you will be meeting IGETC requirements, now is a really good time to check in with your transfer center counselor to review the courses to file for IGETC and or adjust your spring courses to add any missing coursework. And IGETC is specific to students who are attending a California community college. You should be able to find all of this information on your transcripts or in your community college student portal. If you are having trouble finding this information, we recommend that you reach out to your community college counselor for advice. So students must be in good standing at any prior UC campus they attended, as well as at their last school of attendance. However, indicating yes for academic probation does not automatically disqualify a student from admission. So this is what the confirmation of a completion of the TAU looks like. Check the email associated with your UC application frequently, as admission representatives from campuses may ask you for additional information or clarification of information in your application and or TAU. For all of you applying for this fall, the TAU submission date will be the date you submit the TAU. If you have questions regarding your UC application or TAU, please contact the UC Application Center via phone or email to assist you in the process. If you're going to email them, I really do advise you to add a screenshot of the application section you are inquiring about to help them understand what it is that you need help with. I'll give you just a moment to take a screenshot of this information or a picture. So all of the schools that you applied to are going to send you an email with your student ID. And during that process, it's important to make sure that you write them down and keep them organized so you're not constantly having to go back through your email to find your student IDs from the different campuses. If you applied to UC Davis, you will receive your student ID via email. And once you receive it, you can go into your myadmissions.ucdavis.edu/applicants to set up your account. Once you click Create Your Account, you will have to fill out the information above in the form and then click to continue. So this is what your account will look like. This is not a real student. This is a fake account that we have. If you have deficient grade updates or changes to your schedule after the TAU closes, this is where you're going to report that information. It's also where you will we're going to notify you of your admission decision. And so we notify transfer students of their admission decisions between mid to late April. After the TAU closes, you must directly report schedule changes and deficient grades to each campus you applied to. And for UCD, this is done through your My Admissions portal. So now let's talk about some next steps for financial aid and scholarships. A variety of aid is available for all income levels. Whether or not you think you are eligible, we encourage you to apply for financial aid each year. The annual priority filing deadline for state and university grant consideration is March 2nd. Applying begins with a free application for federal student aid, so this is known as the FAFSA, or the California DREAM Act application, known as the CATA. And the financial aid application this year is becoming available starting December 31st. Both applications are free, and the information provided on your FAFSA or CATA is used to determine your financial aid eligibility. The CATA deadline has been extended to April 2nd, so you do have a little bit longer for that, but I don't recommend waiting. You might as well get this completed sooner rather than later. So your application for admission to the UC system is also your scholarship application. So the majority of UC Davis scholarship consideration comes directly from your UC application, but there are lots of other scholarships out there that don't come directly from us, and you can start doing your research on outside scholarships now. The UC Davis Financial Aid and Scholarships website posts a list of outside scholarships as they become aware of them. And this is a great place to start your scholarship search. There are also many scholarship search engines you can use to find scholarships. We listed a few search engines for you here, and I will give you a moment to either take a screenshot or picture of this so you can have access to it. So the Avenue E program is a retention program in the College of Engineering at UC Davis. If you attend an Avenue E partner college, and the districts for those partner colleges are listed here on this slide, and you applied to a College of Engineering major at UC Davis for fall 2024, you may be eligible for the Avenue E Scholar Award. The deadline to apply for the Scholar Award is January 7th, 2024. And we did actually send an email out to students who fit the criteria to apply for this yesterday. So if you are a student who attends one of these schools and you applied for an engineering major, check your email for more information and the link to the application. Some potential benefits of applying for the Avenue E program while at your community college are a $1,000 Scholar Award during your final semester of community college, helpful information and support throughout your last year of community college, invitations to Avenue E events, activities, and virtual campus events, and individualized guidance through the transfer process. So balancing school, work, life responsibilities, and transfer deadlines can be overwhelming, but the key to success is to stay up to date with the admissions timeline. We hope that this is not the very first time that you see this timeline, but if it is, please take a moment to take a screenshot or a picture of this slide. Upcoming deadlines are to submit your TAU by January 31st and your FAFSA by March 2nd or California DREAM Act application by April 2nd. The UCs notify students of their admission decisions between March and April. UC Davis typically notifies transfer students of their admission decisions mid to late April. The UC system commitment deadline for transfers is June 1st. So if you're admitted and you want to attend a UC, you must submit your statement of intent to register no later than June 1st. So make sure to print a copy of your UC application and check your email and spam folder regularly that are associated with your UC application. Register for your spring coursework as soon as you are able to register, and then study and really do your best to earn the highest grades possible. If you're not doing well in a class, reach out to your UC Davis advisor so that you can strategize what your next steps are. You should start working on your FAFSA or CATA and apply for outside scholarships during your winter break. This is a really good time to get started with all of this and get ahead on that. You can start preparing your records now in terms of high school transcripts. That's something we're going to be asking for. Also, if you have any previous colleges that you attended before or universities, you can start getting those transcripts. We would need them for domestic or international coursework, also AP and IB scores. If you're going to be submitting paper copies of any of these items, they must be kept in a sealed envelope in order to remain official. And if you're admitted to any UC campus and commit to attending, that's when all of your official records will be due. And it's going to be due no later than July 1st and must include all of your grades through the spring 2024 term. Don't start sending these records to us yet, but you can just start gathering records from your previous schools and your exams. If you are admitted to UCD and submit your statement of intent to register, you're going to receive instructions in your My Admissions portal on all the records that we require and how and when to submit them. You will need to complete your immunization requirements, and these requirements are also going to be posted in your My Admissions portal as well. And if your school offers a winter intersession, so if you're on a semester system and a winter intersession is offered at your school, that might be something worth looking into for you. It's a good way to kind of get ahead on some coursework and lighten up your load for spring a little bit. All right, we're now going to transition over to Q&A, and we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can. But if for some reason we're not able to get to your question today, we do recommend that you reach out to your UC Davis advisor using the Ask My Advisor tool on the admission website. But Josiah, if you can come up and start helping me with those questions.
Sure, no problem. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here and excited that you are interested in looking or listening to us talk about Davis a little bit and some of the things we have to offer. But the first question that I have is, will incomplete courses affect your submission when submitting your TAU?
So if your coursework is currently incomplete, you would just mark that as such for now. But then once that grade comes in, we'll need you to update us with that information, and that way we can take the grade into account once it's in. So, you know, that TAU usually stays open until March 31st. So I would say definitely get it in by January 31st and put it as an incomplete if it's incomplete at that point. And then once it is completed, then update us by either submitting another TAU, or if the TAU has closed, then submit that to us through the My Admissions portal. So we will need a grade eventually. So we will need you to complete that before the end of the spring. But as long as you update us with that, we'll be able to get that information.
May I add a little bit more to that as
Sure.
well? Yes, definitely report that on the TAU, but in the comment section, provide us with your plan on when you will complete that incomplete grade.
Thank you. The next question I thought was interesting, that maybe other students might have this question as well. Do we have to send official transcripts from every community college we attended through our TAU, or are sending transcripts a separate process?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question that comes up a lot. So the TAU is just self-reported information. So at this point, we don't need any official transcripts. We don't want any official transcripts. If you send them to us, we're not going to be able to use them yet. So that process will happen later. That happens once you've been admitted and you commit to coming. And then, yes, we will need it from every single college or university that you've attended. We're also going to be asking for your high school transcripts, and we will be asking for official test scores as well. So AP, IB, or if you have international exams. So all of those are going to be due July 1st, and there will be instructions in your My Admissions portal on how to get that information to us. So we don't want the transcripts yet, but we will need them eventually if you are going to be coming to Davis.
Thank you. This was another question that kind of came up a little bit. Do we need an IGETC certificate, and when do we submit it to the UCs?
So IGETC is not required. You don't have to do it. But if you do it, then yes, we do need the certification. And so that is something that you want to make sure to talk to your community college about. And then they do the certification. It's a lot of the community colleges will post it on your transcripts. Some do it as a separate certification. So it just kind of depends on how your school goes about doing their official certification. But that will be due at the same time as your transcripts. So July 1st will be when you send that certification to us. But we do allow students to finish up IGETC over the summer. So if that's something that you're doing over the summer, then you could send in that certification to us. It would then be due September 1st would be the deadline. But if it's done by the end of spring, then it's July 1.
Thank you for that. Let's see. Sorry, there's a ton of questions piling up. I'm trying to figure out which another good. Oh, here was. Will being a non-resident in California be seen as an out-of-state application or affect my chances of getting in?
Okay, let me make sure I understand the question. So the question is, if you're a non-resident, but you're in California, so I assume that means attending a California school. That's what I'm assuming by this question. Will it affect your opportunity for admission? No, it will not. So, you know, if you're coming from a California school, we're reviewing you in the same way that we are any other student coming from a school from California. So that really doesn't make any difference in our admission process. But if you have questions about, you know, residency and tuition for residency purposes, then I would urge you to look at the residency information on our website. And if somebody can put that link in the chat, that would be helpful. That has all of our residency Q&A, and then there's also contact information for the residency deputy if you have questions about that.
Another question we've gotten a couple of times: are high school transcripts required as well as your college transcripts, or is it optional?
So we are going to be asking for your high school transcripts. Those will be due July 1st. Technically, at least in the past few years, we haven't required them, but we are still asking for them. And if you can access them, you should submit them. Reason is that there are certain degree requirements that need information from your high school. So that's why we need this information to get over to your academic advisor once you're here. So they're going to be looking for that. So yes, you should submit it. We will be asking for it. It hasn't been required for the past couple of years though, but it's something that we want you to submit.
Another question is, my California Community College offers both an Associate of Science and an Associate of Science for transfer. Is one preferred over the other?
So no, we do not have any preference of one type of associate's degree over another. There's no nothing in the admissions process about having an associate's degree. So whether or not you have the associate's degree is not going to affect your opportunity for admission, and it's not what type of degree you have will not affect your opportunity for admission either. I just want to go back to the high school transcripts thing because I just thought of something else in case we have anyone in here that's a sophomore applicant. Then those high school transcripts are absolutely required. So you would need them for sure. If you've applied as a sophomore, if you end up being admitted as a sophomore, we're going to require those.
Another question that came up a couple of times. What happens if I have a school that ends late? My school ends in late June and may not have a fully updated transcript by then. Would that limit my ability to be admitted?
That's a good question. So, I know that for schools that are on the quarter system, that's where you have that later deadline of when you're finishing up school and able to get all of those transcripts. And so we have a list of what all of those schools are. We're aware of who's on the quarter system. And so we're not holding you to that. We want you to get it in as soon as you can. And if you can make that deadline, but we're not going to penalize you for missing it.
Another question is how can we as students be able to receive housing on campus?
So for housing, that's something that you would indicate that you want after you're admitted and you submit your statement of intent to register. So this is going to happen later on down the line in the process. We do guarantee 2 years of campus housing for our transfer students. So if you want it, you can definitely have it. And you would just let us know through, there's going to be information in your portal about that. So as long as you get your housing application in on time, then that guarantee is in place for you.
Another question is about when will the regular decisions of admissions be released?
So those are going to be released between mid to late April. We don't have an exact date yet, but that's the time frame when we typically release.
There's a lot more, but our team is on it very quickly. So I'm trying to find one that they're not already answering.
Yeah, and if it's something that has been answered and it looks like a good question for everyone, we can answer it live as well.
Okay. I know that we've had quite a few different students that talked about international admission. So one question is, if the international student is required to submit high school transcripts, do they have to get those translated?
I don't actually know the answer to that. Pam, do you happen to know if we will be asking for translated high school transcripts from international students?
That is a great question. I don't know. We may have to get back to that student.
Yeah, and we can, someone can post in the chat the contact information, and if you needed to reach out to our international advisors, they definitely know if we need that. So we've got people in our office who are specific to specializing in international.
I'm just looking for another good question. Another question is, so do you require any unofficial transcripts this month?
No, we do not require any unofficial transcripts this month. The only time we might ask for unofficial transcripts, and this is why it's really important that you check your email frequently that's associated with your UC application, is if some questions come up during the process that we're actually reviewing your application, we may reach out and ask you to submit unofficial transcripts to us via email. So really important that you're checking that just for any kinds of questions that we have. So, you don't miss out. Sometimes students aren't checking their email, or they're not checking their spam. They don't realize that they've gotten those messages from us. And then if we have incomplete information, we're not able to offer the student admission because there were things that we weren't able to connect with them about that we had questions about. So very important to check that email and that you respond directly to those communications if you get one.
Another question is, I noticed this webinar is being recorded. Will it be uploaded online somewhere?
Yes, so we are going to put this online on our Transfer Opportunity Program YouTube channel. So if one of my colleagues can put the YouTube channel in the chat, that would be great.
Another one is, does it make a difference if we're applying from a university versus a community college?
So if you're applying from a university, it's sometimes just a little bit more complex in terms of the process of how we're looking for coursework to be equivalent to our courses. But as long as you're still meeting those requirements, ultimately that's what we're going to be looking for. But there's just not like a set list of coursework that transfers from a non-California community college to us. Or articulates, which articulates means it's like an equivalent course to our specific UC Davis course for your major. So the process can be a little bit more complicated in terms of the review of that coursework and what it is that we're looking for. But ultimately, you know, whether you're a California community college student or coming from somewhere else, you know, everybody has the opportunity for admission with us, as long as you meet those requirements.
Thank you. Another question is, can you talk about the Blue and Gold grant?
Yeah, so the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan is something that eligible California students, whether you are either through FAFSA or the California Dream Act application, can potentially qualify for. And so by getting that application in by that priority filing deadline, which is March 2nd for FAFSA. It's been extended this year to April 2nd for the California Dream Act application. We're going to automatically review for the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. And if your family's income is less than $80,000 per year, these are the students, if all other requirements are met, would qualify for it. And then it covers your UC fees. And so the UC fees are, I think, a little over $13,000 for the year. So it would make sure that that portion is covered. And then students who qualify for that may qualify for other aid as well. Something good to know about how the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan works is that it's first covered by other grants and scholarships. So if you qualify for, you know, Cal Grant or Pell Grant, you know, that's going to cover that amount first. But if there's some left where your UC tuition is not fully being covered, that Blue and Gold will fill in that gap. So that's how that program works.
Thank you. Another question is, what if my current school doesn't offer the courses that UC Davis requires as a prerequisite for my major?
So if you are at a California community college, and on the ASSIST website, it shows no course articulated for something that is an admission requirement for us. If that is your primary community college, we will waive that course for admission. So we do allow students to take that coursework after transfer, as long as that is from a California community college and it's your primary school.
Thank you. And we had a couple of questions from international students. Just wanted to clarify that the Blue and Gold plan is only for California residents. Is that correct?
That is true, either California resident or a bona fide resident through like the California Dream Act application, but it's not for international students or those who are not, you know, who are domestic, but not from California.
Thank you. And then another question is, does UC Davis offer family housing for transfer students?
We do have family housing, so that's something that you could definitely let us know that you're interested in if you want the family housing. It's not part of the 2-year guarantee for transfer students. There is a process to get onto the list for that housing. So that's something that I would definitely encourage you to contact the student housing department, family housing, about to see how that all works and how to get on the list for the family housing.
And is there a student course plan that we receive per our major? Do we talk to a counselor about it, or do we have to make an appointment?
So that's going to be part of your summer orientation. So if you are admitted to Davis and you commit to coming, there is a orientation that happens over the summer. And as part of that process, you meet with your academic advisor, and that's where they put together your educational plan for you. And that will all happen before you actually have to register for classes.
Thank you. Here's another good one. How do you define primary school?
So primary school is actually indicated by the student on the application. And so that's what you would be putting down as your primary school. And I believe on the UC application, it comes through as your most recent school, last school attended. I think it's what you mark for that. Pam, correct me if I'm wrong on how that primary school is flagged on the UC application, but I believe that's how it is.
Yeah. Oh.
I think you explained that correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. Does it is it also matter by the units as well? Is it whichever you had the most units from, or is it just the last school?
It's what the student indicates as their last school of attendance on the UC application that's going to pop up as the primary. So sometimes students are attending multiple schools at the same time. So you would want to put, what your last, what your primary, what you think as your primary school. So which is usually where the student would have done most of their coursework.
Thank you. And then another question is, can you explain a little bit about an alternative major?
Sure. So on the UC application, there is an option to include an alternative major. And so what that is, well, let me kind of back up. First, we're absolutely going to review your application for your primary major. So that is where the process starts. So for sure, we review you for your primary major. If you included an alternate major, it's not something you have to do, but if you do, and we're not able to admit you to your primary major, we might review you for your alternate major. It's not something that happens automatically, it's at our discretion, but it's something that we might do. So there's a possibility that if we're not able to admit you to your primary major, that we might be able to offer you admission to your alternate major.
Thank you. Can students choose double major after entering into a UC? If possible, will it change the tuition fee?
Great question. Yeah, so when you're applying, you can only apply to one major, except for having that alternate option, but it's really just for one major at a time, right? But once you actually enroll, that's where you can pursue a double major. And we do have a lot of students that do a double major. That ultimately is at the discretion of the department. So it's something where you would actually meet with your academic advisor. You would let them know what you are hoping to do. And if that's something that's feasible, they can put an ed plan together for you to add on that second major. Something else just to mention as a good option is a minor. So minors are always something that students can do. That's not something that you need specific approval for. I mean, you do go through a process of letting your advisor know so they can put the ed plan together for you, but that's definitely something you can do where the second major would need an actual approval, but a lot of students do it. So it's not uncommon to have a second major, and there's no additional fee for adding on a second major. So it's not going to cost you any more money unless if, it takes you more time, then, in that sense, it would cost more if it takes you longer to graduate.
What should someone do if they are waitlisted?
So if you end up being offered a position on the wait list, then I believe you need to opt in. I think if there's a process to let us know that, yes, I want to be on the wait list. And then from there, you'll just need to wait and see what happens. The waitlist offers, like if we're going to admit students from the waitlist, those are going to come out after that June 1st statement of intent to register deadline. So generally what we recommend is that if you have an offer from another campus that you are open to taking, that you would accept an offer somewhere else. That way you have a spot somewhere. And then if you end up being offered admission off of the wait list, and ultimately this is where you want to attend, then you can cancel with that other school and then accept your offer of admission with us. But we want students to, take an offer that they do have so they don't miss out on that opportunity in case we don't end up offering them a position from the wait list here.
Here's another good question. If I've already met all the requirements in my tag, do I need to remain a full-time student? Or am I able to enroll part-time with no effect on my decision?
So there's no requirement for tag that you be full-time. So it's fine if you're not full-time. However, if this is a change to your schedule from what you initially reported on your tag application, it's really important that you are certain that you are still meeting all of the tag requirements. So schedule changes are okay as long as tag requirements are still met. But this is something that I would say reach out to your UC Davis advisor about, just to check and make sure that it's not going to affect you meeting those tag requirements if you're going to make a change.
Can you apply to more universities in the TAU?
So the TAU would be just an update for any university UCs that you've already applied to. So, if you already applied to multiple campuses, the TAU will update for all of those campuses, just like the UC application. It's one application for all the campuses that you wish to apply to, and then the TAU updates for all of those campuses at once. So you don't need to submit like separate TAUs. But if you are wanting to apply to more campuses now, you've realized, I submitted my application, but I want to apply to these other campuses. There are some campuses that are still open for admission. So there's been an extended transfer applicant deadline for several of the UCs to January 15th. So you still can go back in and notify that you want to include those campuses, and then they would have your TAU information as well.
Thank you. Here's another good question. If someone has already applied before, is their application given priority to be accepted, or do they have to just reapply and be in the competitive current pool?
So each year you apply, it's a fresh application. We're looking at you within the current pool. We're not factoring in whether or not you were admitted previously into the decision this time around. We do have access to your previous application, so we'll just be checking it for consistent information and make sure that everything you're reporting is accurate. But we're not giving priority to a student because they've applied before, or is there any kind of negative impact if you maybe applied before and were not admitted? So it's a fresh start.
If you applied previously and sent your AP scores years prior, do you need to resend those AP scores again?
You will need to resend that information to us, yes. Same with any scripts or anything that you've sent, previously. We'd need new for all of that.
Are transfer students from California community colleges prioritize over four-year out-of-state schools?
So technically, if we are in a position where we aren't able to, admit these students, we would be able to prioritize California applicants within the system. But for us at this point, as long as students are meeting requirements, we don't have a stricter policy for California versus non-California students' requirements being met. So we're looking for the same information.
Are students who applied later due to the extension disadvantaged to those who applied by November 31st? November 30th.
Yeah, there's no disadvantage. So we are reviewing your application in the same way as a student who got it in by that November 30th deadline. I would say, you know, if you know you want to apply now and you haven't done it yet, just to get it in sooner than later, just to get that off of your plate so it's less stress and you're not, you know, waiting until that last moment. But technically, you know, there's no priority given. Everyone's going to have an equal review.
Thank you. Does a DSPS student have a different process and first priority? And how will they know that I'm a DSPS student?
So in the admission process, there's no different process for a DSPS student. In terms of receiving any kind of accommodations here, we would want you to reach out to our Student Disability Center. So if somebody can put that information in the chat, that way you can connect with them about all of the services that they would offer once you get here.
If a student is an immigrant and they don't have official high school transcripts, is community college transcripts enough?
So as I mentioned before, we ask for those high school transcripts. We want them if you're able to get them, but if you don't have high school transcripts, if you've applied as a junior, then, you know, all we require for admission purposes is the college transcript. So as long as you have all of your college and university transcripts, then it's okay. We would need any international college transcripts still for sure, but if it's high school transcripts and you're not able to get those, then, you know, we do allow students to still, you know, go through the process without getting those high school transcripts to us. But if you can get them, you know, I would say get them, because as mentioned earlier, there are some degree requirements for certain colleges, certain majors, that they look for information from the high school. So that's why we want you to have those. So it will help you later on down the line. But if it's not possible, it's not possible.
Can you let us know which campuses have later deadlines for the applications?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but if somebody can look that up online, that would be great. We could post it in the chat.
Let's see, another question is, how do we know if our credits will transfer over if we're applying from the university?
So I think what you're asking is if you're applying from a non-California community college, how do you know what actually transfers? And that's something that once that evaluation is done, once we've reviewed your application, and then if you're going to be coming to us, we'll post all of that transfer credit. So all of that gets posted and sent over to your academic advisor so that they know like everything that transfers over and what you still need to take. If, for example, you're not admitted, but you're trying to like strategize, well, what do I need to do to make this work for later? You're welcome to contact our office. We can look up your application and help you figure that out, because once we've done that official review, we'll have that information.
For those that were accepted through TAG, is there a different process?
A different process. I'm not sure that I understand the question, but anyone who was admitted through TAG still has to take all of the same steps that a general applicant needs to take. So you still have to submit your UC application, you still have to do the TAU. We're going to look to see that you're still meeting all of those conditions of the TAG once your TAU information comes in. And then for any student a final offer of admission is always a conditional offer of admission, meaning that you still meet the conditions through the end of the spring. But your tag will stay intact as long as, you know, you're still meeting the conditions of the tag once we have all of your updated information. And then you'll get that final formal official admission notification mid to late April.
So most of the question that I'm seeing, we've answered them, but here's another question that we didn't answer. Are pets allowed in the residence halls?
So there is information on the housing website that I would encourage you to take a look at. They have accommodations for, what's the word I'm looking for? Support animals, if you have the documentation for that. I don't know all the details of the process, so I would encourage you to take a look. If it's really just a pet, then no, they don't allow it. But if it is either an animal that's for a disability specifically, or a support animal, they do have a process for that.
Is there a summer transfer EDGE program for transfer students to Davis?
So there are courses that you can take in the summertime prior to attending. I can't remember if it's a specific set of summer coursework for transfer students. Pam or somebody else on the line, do you recall if there's a summer program to take coursework just for transfer students, or is it just the same things that are open to everybody?
I believe that the Transfer EDGE program is on pause, but summer session is open to all students. I can put the summer session website in the chat.
Let's see, just looking to see if I can see some. Are students allowed to switch their major on the campus that they decide to attend?
So that may be a possibility. It is ultimately up to the discretion of the academic department. So if you realize, you know, that the major you enter in is not the major that you want, you can pursue that change. It would be a matter of meeting with your academic advisor to see if that's possible, but it really is situational. It depends on, what coursework you have and what the major is that you want to change to, and, what kind of space they have available for that program.
Another question is, can you finish a requirement at Davis, like the first quarter or maybe a summer class? I'm assuming they're talking about an admissions requirement or maybe like a transfer requirement.
Yeah, so if it's a minimum requirement for admission, then it has to be done by the end of spring. But if it's additional coursework, so let's say it's a lower division course for your major, but it's not one that's required for admission, that could be taken over the summer. Or if it's, beyond your 60 units and it's not part of your 7-course pattern requirement, but it's, additional courses for general education or a GETC, that can be done over the summer. So if you're not sure if the course is required or not for admission, I recommend that you reach out to your UC Davis advisor to check on that. That way, we can help you to strategize to make sure that you get what you need in the spring to meet those minimum requirements.
Another question is, are students able to edit their PIQs after they've submitted their application?
So students cannot edit the PIQ once your application is submitted. So the only changes that you can make at this point are to your contact information, your exams, if you have additional exam scores that you need to report or changes to that, and also to applying to another campus that's still open if you didn't apply to them initially. But in terms of the PIQ, you can't submit new PIQs. If there's something like just a short bit of information, something that's like really different from what you initially put on your application. There is a comment box in the TAU. So you do have some space to put some comments in there, but it's not meant to be for you to, revise the PIQ or send in a new PIQ. That's not what that space is for.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when will the first tuition's payment be due?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
September 15th.
There you go, Pam knows. Thanks,
You
Pam.
said September 15th?
Correct. I will look for the calendar. It's on the registrar website. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Where can someone contact us about their specific credits transferring?
So that would be where you would want to reach out to your UC Davis advisor. So that Find My Advisor tool, if somebody can put that into the chat, that would be the person to help you with that. But if it's non-California Community College at this point, we're not going to have that information because the review has not been done yet. So that would be something to find out, after the admission decision.
Someone just asked, can you talk a little bit more about what the comment space for is on the TAU?
Yeah, so that comment space in the TAU is primarily really for clarifying any kind of like academic information. So, something that I've had come up with quite a few students that I work with are, let's say you got academic renewal, and that's happened, post submitting your application. If you got that academic renewal and it's posted to your transcripts, you're not able to edit anything on the TAU other than your fall grades and your spring coursework. So if it's for coursework like from before, that would be something that you would put in that comment space. Or if you put in like some kind of error and you realize, oh, I forgot to report this class, from that's not from this fall or the spring, that you can actually edit in there. So that would be something to put in there. So those kinds of things, some pertinent information that we would need an update from you on is what to put in there. Also, if you're not going to be enrolled, that's something you need to let us know in the TAU. So that needs to be reiterated in the TAU if you're not enrolled for fall or spring.
If students need to submit their transcripts, will they receive an email from UC Davis?
So in your My Admissions portal is where we're going to be requesting all of those official transcripts, and we'll have all of the information on deadline. So deadline is going to be July 1, but that will be posted in there, and with each of the transcripts that are required will be in there. If you're talking about earlier in the process where we have questions and need more information, like we're reviewing your application and the person reviewing your application is like, I need to get some clarification on this, they might email you for transcripts. And that email comes in as like a generic email from about your UC application. It doesn't come from like a specific person. So, make sure you're checking that email regularly. And then there's a link in there where you would actually respond and upload a transcript. So, check your spam, check your email regularly, make sure you're responding to any of those messages that come in. But otherwise, in most cases, it won't be until July 1. But international records, we almost always will ask for, I think, during the review process for the unofficials while they're in the process of being reviewed. So if you're having any international coursework, definitely have a heads up that we're going to ask for that. A lot of times if there's academic renewal, we will ask for that information, or if there's just something that's unclear to us. So, for everybody, it's important to be checking, but those are, the types of situations where it's a lot more likely that we're going to ask.
I know we're running out of time, so maybe we can have one last question. It says, what should I do if I listed a course for spring on the tag application, but the school does not offer them when selecting courses for spring?
So you'll just want to put your accurate schedule on your UC, on the transfer academic update. So on that TAU, that's where you'll put the correct information. If this is something that was required for your tag, it's still going to be a requirement. So that's where you would need to be able to actually find that class somewhere else. And so that would have been in your tag contract. But if you have questions about it, you're not sure, please reach out to your advisor. That's something that we can take a look back at your tag and see, is that a class that you absolutely have to have? Or, is it something that's okay if you don't have it for spring, will your tag still be okay? So I would say if there's any questions about it on your end, please reach out. All right, well, we are at 6 o'clock, everyone. Thank you so much. This was a great session. I really appreciate all of your wonderful questions and being engaged. It was great seeing all of you. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.